Hello there! Today I will be electroplating a pumpkin. Why? Because why not? It's the spooky season, while Halloween, as most of you know it, isn't traditionally a thing where I am from. I do grow pumpkins and think carving them is a nice arts and crafts project. But doing the same thing every year can get boring. So I decided to try something new. I took a small pumpkin and attached to it a piece of copper wire. I then used plastic tape to cover the areas of the pumpkin I did not wish to electroplate. Unless you're doing electroless plating, the surface of the object you wish to electroplate needs to be conductive. If this is not already the case, conductive paint of some kind has to be used. I used a graphite-based conducting lacquer that was advertised as being appropriate for the application at hand. When graphite was dry, I removed the tape that I used to mask the areas I did not wish to paint. I then prepared the electroplating bath. Into an ice cream tub, I poured distilled water, to which I then added copper sulfate. Concentration was roughly 60 grams of copper sulfate pentahydrate per 1 liter of distilled water. I then added some of mine graphite powder contaminated sulfuric acid to lower the pH and increase the conductivity. I didn't go lower than 3 on the pH scale because I feared that too acidic of a bath would damage the organic materials I will be electroplating. I added a copper plate that will serve as the anode, while our workpiece will be the cathode. I then tested the setup on a random leaf to see if it works. And it did, so I moved to the main event. I placed the pumpkin into the solution and connected the power supply. I couldn't submerge the pumpkin fully because the dang thing floats. And I had no idea how to make it not float that wouldn't interfere with the plating process. I then turned on the power supply and began to increase the voltage until I got a decent current. It took 20 volts to get 20 milliamps of current, which wasn't ideal. But nonetheless, some copper did plate onto the pumpkin. But it only did so at a very narrow band at the water's surface. I tried to solve the problem by repositioning the pumpkin during the electroplating process, but the problem persisted. This, combined with high resistance, prompted me to take the pumpkin out of the solution dry it, and add a few more coats of graphite paint. Then I rubbed off the paint where I don't want copper plating and stuck it back into the electroplating bath. At 14 volts, current is 10 milliamps. I'll wait for a night so a thick band of copper plating is formed around the pumpkin, and then I'll rotate it for 90 degrees and use the newly formed copper as a contact. So that's what I did, and it worked. 12 hours later, the current increased. I then turned the pumpkin to start plating the part that was previously out of the solution. I also removed the dendritic crystals that grew over one of the pumpkin's eyes. I have to lower the voltage because the current is too high, which will lead to uneven plating that we don't want, because dendritic growth copper is much more likely to flake off than a thin, even plating. 2 days after reapplying the graphite spray, this is how the pumpkin looks. It is mostly covered with copper, but there are still some bare spots where I don't want them to be. Roughly 3 whole days have passed since I started the process, and I believe I have built a thick enough metal layer for the pumpkin, so I'll stop with electroplating. There are areas with thinner, shinier plating where current was lower and the crystals grew smaller and more even. And there are areas of high current where crystals grew large. There is also already some oxidation on the top. I'll wash this and dry it to see how the end product looks. Well, it certainly looks like something that climbed out of Chernobyl reactor 4, but that's not a bad thing. It's season appropriate if nothing else. I will have to scrape off that bit of copper plating here. I thought that breaking the conductive layer would be enough to prevent it from plating here, but entire pumpkin conducted current to some extent, so plating also happened here. And you can see that the plating is kinda thick. Here is not a whole millimeter, but somewhere else it's multiple millimeters. It looks positively cursed, so I know the plating is shoddy,
I had too high of a current most of the time. It's not adhering everywhere like it should. Like, there are random patches where there is no copper. The reasons for this are I haven't sealed the pumpkin prior to electroplating it.
I also used no additives that are usually added to decrease the grain size and make the electroplating more even. I should also use something to prevent the copper from tarnishing, but I decided against it. I do like my Halloween decorations to look kinda cursed, so random patches of oxidation and weird green coloring that formed on the organic part of the pumpkin fits very well with what I was going for. I believe this is a fun project almost anyone can try, and you can easily do better than me. So, what do you say? Wanna have some fun? Thank you for watching, like, subscribe, and see you next week.